Hi everyone. So today let's see how this semi-structured data is handled in Snowflake. So when I say semi-structured data, so it could be JSON, Parquet, XML, or other formats as well. But today we're going to see especially how JSON is handled in Snowflake. So all this semi-structured data is loaded into a column, and column that has to be have a data type. So that is called as variant in Snowflake, especially. Okay. So let's get started. So the first thing is for this one, I'm just using a database. Okay, I already have a database. So okay, let's create a database. Okay, create database. Mm, B1, and then I'll create a schema. Create schemas learn. Okay, and then I'll use this database. And then use the schema. The first thing is you need a database, and inside the database you will have a schema. Alright. So once you are done with it, so then and the next step would be like for this particular learning process, we need a JSON file. Okay, so the step one is loading the data, loading a JSON data into Snowflake. Right. So how to load a JSON file into a Snowflake? So however the method that we are going to use it in order to load the file into Snowflake, we need to create a stage. So step one would be creating a stage. Okay, so creating a stage would be the step one. So what is the syntax for it? So create or replace. So this replace is not mandatory, but since we need to run it multiple times, right? So I would suggest we do it. So JSON underscore loading underscore stage. This is something the name which I prefer to give. So it's not mandatory that we need to use the same name. Okay. So now I'm creating a stage. So once you create a stage, what you need to do, you need to load that data into the stage. So step two would be load that data into the created stage. Right. So how you would do it? So in GUI when using Snowsite, so the only option is like we can use that the visual commands. I mean we have an option to load that file directly here. But when you use SnowSQL, let's say SnowSQL, right? So there is an option called we can use it something called as a put file, and then you put your C drive path here, and followed by the JSON, and then we will put um, from where we need to load it. So that's it. So when you run this command, right, so it will load the data from your local machine when you're using SnowSQL. But right now this is not the case for us. Okay, so let's create the stage. Okay, so now inside this database, inside the schema, I'm gonna create a stage. Okay, let's check it here. So if you see here, so we have this one and there is no object found, but I'm gonna create a stage there now. Yes, the stage has got created. Right, so now we refresh and see if we have a stage. Then how you will load that file? Okay, first we need a file. Okay, source file. Okay, already I downloaded that particular file, is zipped it, so I unzipped it and saved it somewhere. Okay, now let's see, this is a stage. So I'm gonna open the stage in a new window, and once you're inside the stage, you need to click the files here, and once you select the files here, you can browse and we can see that. So this is a file that I'm talking about, and if you see it is a huge file. Okay, so let's load that file. It's 182 MB of file, a single JSON file. So I'm gonna upload this, and it's gonna take some while, right, to upload that file into the stage, since I have given it's on my local machine. Okay, so now once this data is loaded, okay, let's say like once this step 2 is completed, so what is the step 3? Step 3 is like we can check the data, we can see the data that got loaded into the state. verify the files in the stage using the list command. Okay, verify the loaded file in the stage using list command. So how you would do it? So these steps are like good to know. It's not like once you load it you need to test it everything or something like that. But yeah, it's good. Like so this is the stage name. So once you give this, but we need to wait till this file is getting loaded. So I believe yeah, one file got uploaded successfully. Okay, so now the file is loaded. So let's see. Okay, so file looks loaded. So now I'm gonna list this particular data. Okay, if you see here, this is the file name and this is the size of the file. I believe the file is loaded without any issue, so that's good. But if you see, the issue is, so we just loaded that file, okay, into a stage, but now we need to load that into a table. So the next step would be loading the JSON file from the Snowflake internal stage, Snowflake stage, to the database. Okay. For that, first we need to declare this particular file format. So I know it's a JSON, right? So, but I want Snowflake to know that it's a JSON. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a file format for it, and then I'm gonna use it while loading that particular format in the table. Okay. So let's say step 4 is create a file format for the stage, or we call it as source file. Okay, so let's see. Create or replace, we call it as file format. Okay, and I'm gonna name it like source no, I'll just say my JSON format, and I know what does my JSON format looks like. So the type of this particular thing is JSON, and so there is one more thing, but I'll just show you how that really happens. Okay, and then I need to skip outer array. So when I open this JSON file and I show the the data is enclosed within an array or something like that, right? So I'll just show you. First I'll do it without this. Okay, so that you will find the difference. Okay, so see, this is a file. Okay, so if you see this file, it has an array, right? It started with an array, and it is a huge file. If you scroll to the dot, that is every object inside this JSON file is having an outermost array. So just to skip that word, we need to strip that array while loading it, so that every record will get loaded as an individual. Every object will load it into an individual record. So that's what this command means. But yeah, we will do it without that. Okay, so now I'm gonna create this particular file format. Okay, my JSON format successfully created. So once you created it, now we need to create a database to load it. Step 5, we create a database, or we create a Snowflake table to load the JSON data from the stage. Right, so what is the variant? Okay, create or replace table. Okay, so that's what we're gonna see. So this is like EBA register. Okay, so this is the table name, since that is very much relevant. Okay, let's see. Okay, so only one input data. Okay, so let's say I'll call it as JSON data, and the data type is variant, VANT. Okay, so that is the data type. So I'm gonna create this table. Okay, okay, that is fine. Okay, and then I'm gonna create this. Okay, this table is also got created. Okay, so now once the table is created, so we need to load the data from the stage into the table. load the data from the stage into the table. So how do you do it? So we can just use copy into, okay, EBA underscore or whatever the name that we have. Copy into this EBA registry, okay, and then I'm gonna from where, okay, from where, yeah, from my JSON, no, from this stage, right, from this particular stage. And what is the name of my particular file? I have here, let's see, file and my file. So we have this file. Okay, let me okay, so I have this file name, so I'll just put it down here. JSON and okay, so here is where we are loading the data, and then we need to say the file format for this particular one. Okay, so what is the format name that I'm gonna give here? Okay, format name. The name is, I have already created a format here, right? So I'm just gonna give this as the format name. You use this format name and then you load the data into the table. So if you see here, so we haven't we just given that as a JSON file. Okay, so now I'm going to load it into a table, and that table has one particular column, and other expectation is like each object has to load it into multiple records. Right, so let's see, I'm going to execute this one and we'll see it. It's taking its time. Okay, it should fail, so that's what the expectation is. So why, I'll let you know once it got failed. Okay, yes, it got failed. Why it got failed? The JSON document is too large. Why it is? Because when we are not skipping the outer array, the entire block, the entire array is considered as a single object, and then it tried to load it into a single record in that particular table. So this JSON data, that one column, like entire JSON file is getting loaded into that particular column, and that's why it's getting failed. So this is the reason we just need to strip this outer array. So if we strip the outer array, so the rest of the thing will be considered like each inside that array, whatever it is, that is considered as a record. Okay, now let's see. I'm just strip this outer array and then I'm running the same query again. Now you will see the difference. It should get loaded here right now. Yes, it got loaded. So if you see here, so there are this much of record got loaded. It's around 2 lakhs record. So 2,88,408 record that got loaded into a table, right? So now what are the next steps? So next step, we have loaded that data into this EBA registry, right? So now the thing is like we can query the data. Okay, let's say querying the data from the Snowflake table. You select star from EBA registry limit 100. Okay, let's see. Okay, old habits. Okay, so I'm just gonna query it, but because you see here, right? So every object is returned as an individual record here, and if you select it, you can see this that particular object as here, JSON data object, Right. Now, you might ask a question. So, is it only possible just to load the data into a table and then only query that particular data? No, no, it's not mandatory. If you know that particular object name, or if you know that name inside that particular object, that what you're looking for, you can load it from the stage without loading it into a table. I mean, you can query it on the stage itself. Okay, let's say querying the data from the stage without loading into a table. Okay, let's see how you can do it. Let's say the same word, select, and you just leave it. We will do it. So this is the one, right? So this is how we are loading it. So same thing, we can use it, but next point is like we should know like what we are selecting it, right? So same thing, if we give select star, okay, and then we will give this limit as 10. So the output is going to be the same. Like, okay, what is the mistake that I did? Um, oh yeah, so this will not be the same when you do it. Yes, so we need to give file format, and then we need to append this format to my JSON format, and then I'll limit this to 100. So probably this should work. Let's check it out. Okay, yes, it is working. Yes, and now see, like, okay, so now it's the same thing that whatever I handled into a table, and now we're doing table. So now let's say you wanna query it without loading it into a table, and you want to check only this particular column, CA underscore owner ID. All right, so let's see how we can retrieve it. Okay, so again, so the bottom part is going to be the same. So let me copy and paste it. Okay, so just to ease my time. So now let's see, you know which parameters. So that is the first parameter, right? So that is the first parameter that I want to query. And what is the value that is had? So it has CA underscore owner ID, right? And this is a CA owner ID, and when you run it, it's gonna return the data, right? See, but this data, that whatever it is returned, right? So that is a JSON object format. So how you know it is an object format? So usually, so when we run a query and retrieve the data from a JSON, that's going to be a default format, unless you change that format into some format which you want. Okay, so how you would change it? So you can typecast it to a varchar. Okay, so let me run it again. That's it. So now we have this CA owner ID from the JSON object, and it's all here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now let's say, so this is a part. So now let's say how to validate a, a JSON file after loading into a table and before processing the data. So let's see, we have received a file, and then from the file we have cropped it, and then whatever the data that we need, we have loaded that objects into multiple records from a JSON file, and we load it into a Snowflake tables. And before doing any processing, we just need to validate the JSON file, right? So how you will validate? So JSON file has a simple my like inbuilt function. Let's say select, and so we have the function called, I think, check JSON. Yeah, so it is there. So check JSON, and then what is that column name that we have created? So that is column name is JSON. So we'll give JSON data. Okay, from EBA underscore registry, EBA underscore register. So you see, when you run this command, so it's going to check that each and every object, which I say each and every object, each and every record in that particular table, and it's returned null, then it's good. right, as output. Okay, so let's see. So when it return null, which means like, yeah, the data is good, but if it's not good, then it's going to throw out an error stating like, oh no, the data is not expected. So if you see here, so we have received all null. So it's similar like for any basic SQL and say SQL that you write, like so count star where count is greater than 0. So now we can give that where JSON where output is not null, then you're gonna when you run this query that gonna return some record. So that's how we will validate this particular data. So now we have come a long way, like from how to load it and how to load that from the file into a table and how to validate it. Now after validating a JSON, so what is the main thing that we're gonna do is like we're gonna extract the value from the JSON. Extract the value from a JSON file into into a table. Okay, so that's what I mean, because it is a semi-structured data and we just need to know how we can do it. Okay, so let's see, when we give select, we already gave this, right? So yeah, we just use this. Okay, so now this one, if you see that we have an object called CA owner ID and this particular object, and then inside this object, so we have this variable and entity code, entity type. It's actually a key comma value. So this is a key and value for the key. And entity code is a key and value for the key. And entity type is a key and value for the key. And we have property as a key and we have a value as an array again, right? If you know that. So that's kind of a different thing that we are gonna see how we gonna load it. So I picked up this file because it is pretty much different when compared to the other files that what I've worked with. Um, so let's just do it. Okay. So I'm gonna select a particular column. So let's say, so this is the first column which is already there, right? So I'm gonna say from EBA registry. Okay. So we just can directly extract it. So let's say what is that column name again? JSON data. So that is a column name, and then you followed by a colon, and then you put out this particular value. Let's say limit 10. So when I run this data, so it's gonna fetch this column directly, right? As I say. So one major thing is like this one will return again an output which is type of variant. It's not a varchar. Even though the data looks like a varchar, when you extract the data, it's again a variant. So how do you know like what is extracted? So let's just see the same thing. Okay, the same query. So but if you see here, so we need to understand what is an output of the system, right? So let's give that is an inbuilt function, so which gives system, and then what is the type of output that I'm getting out of this particular select statement. I mean this particular column that I'm limiting it to, and let's run this one and see. Yeah, see, all are variant. Yes. Now again, how you would typecast it, I mean you cast it into a different one, how you can do it. So that's again the same code. So this is a column that you are fetching it, and then you need to typecast it. You put a double colon there, and then you cast it into a varchar. Now if you run the data, so that is typecasted into a var character. So that's how we would change the data type when we pick it up from the system. Okay. So now let's see the next things. Let's pick up another column. Let's see what are the columns that we have it in this particular table, and then we'll see we have entity code, entity type, and properties. Okay, let's say owner ID, entity code, entity type. Okay, let's pick up all those records. Okay, how this really works. Okay, let's see. first I'm picking up the CA owner ID as a worker, right? So, and we can give an alias name as well. And yeah, so next again JSON data. So I'm gonna pick another column called entity code, I believe. Yeah, entity code. We will check it if I did any mistakes. That's gonna throw out an error, right? Right. So this is an ent code, and we will see JSON data and entity type. Now, since I played with this similar data for a longer time, I believe I I know the column names, but I hope I'm right. Okay, entity type. Okay, so now we have this data, but let me check once. Okay, entity code and entity type. Mhm. Yeah, that is fine. Entity code and entity type, it is there. Mm. Okay, so now I'm gonna run this particular three records from here. So I'll just remove it. Yeah, it is as expected, so that is coming good. So now let's see what really happens when I go to the next column, which says properties, right? So let's see. When I give properties, so let's see properties. Okay, I'm gonna run this. See, properties is returning another JSON object. So a JSON within another JSON. So this is completely fine. So this is a valid data. So now I'm going to read this particular data again. So how to read it? So let's say property of 0. Okay. So this looks like an array. So inside that property, I'm gonna see what data that I have. So if you see here inside this property, so there is another property called entaut. Okay, so let's just say I'm gonna give ent entry date, it is right. So ent authentication or something aut, and that is again an array. So I'm gonna give it a 0, and then what? And then so this is something that I have. Okay, let's just try what data that it returns. It should return something like a date. Yes, it did return a date. So now let's see for the next one. So it's a date. So we will typecast it to date using our to date function. Okay. So that's an we can do it as a varchar as well, but since it is a date, okay. So let's just make it as a date. Okay, so here this is an input, so I'm gonna cast it into a varchar, but typecast it as, let's say, yyyy hyphen hyphen dd. So that is a format, and this format I'm gonna name it as, let's say, date, date of something like that. So I'm gonna run this code again. No, okay, what did I miss? I must have come. That's it. So now we have this particular data. So this one I don't need. So what is the next column that we have under property? So we have nt reference code. Okay, let's see what is the next column. Select star. So we have ent, and then we have ent net reference code. Okay, let's just pick few. Okay, so I'm just gonna pick this Okay. So this is gonna be 1, and this is gonna be 2, and this is gonna be 3. So 1 is entity code, and then we're gonna see this entity name. Okay, let's just do this. This is fine. We will typecast this as well to worker as ent underscore national, and this one also we typecasted to worker as entity name. Okay, so now when you run this select statement, okay, you see you're getting all this data, but if you see here, so we may not know what is the length of an every array inside that particular JSON, right? So it is like when you want to do an one-time activity, this is fine. So but actually when it comes to an actual data, so this is not at all the right way to do it. So this is where, and this is where there is another function which is getting used inside this particular version of the data. Let's say so this is where we have another way of how we can access a data within a JSON file. Okay, so that is called as a flatten. Okay, so let's say with the same data registry, right? So I just copy it, and then I'll just put it there. So before that, you just need to understand. So everything within an array inside the JSON file is like when we're gonna split that into everything, that's gonna be like a cross join, right? If example for CA owner ID, so this is one record, and inside that we have properties. We have two properties, which mean after we extract, we're gonna get two records for each. I mean, two records for each of these record, because it's an array. When we split it, so this array value entity author will get, we have two dates, right? Like example, 2020 12 and 07, and we have another date. Okay, let's see this example, right? So if you see this example, we got two date for the single operation. So how the two records we are going to get it, like CA owner ID is this, entity type is this, and entity ID is this, and then property we have two. So for this combination, we are going to get one record with this one date, and then again for the same combination we are going to get another record with the second date. So this is how an array works inside the JSON. So we're gonna expand that particular data value here. Okay, so let's see how we'll do that one. So this is again copy pasted the data, and here from the same data, so we're gonna give lateral flatten, and we're gonna flatten this particular file. And what is an input for this one? An input is what is a column name? Input is JSON data, and input is JSON data. And what is a path? So this particular function, right? So inside the flatten we can give input and then path, and there are other keywords as well. We can give that there. And what is a path that we are literally into? Because other path it is fine, right? So only for the properties we need help from this flatten function, because other things directly we can consume it. So I'll just give for this properties. For this property we need help with this properties, right? And we can give an alias name, so that is not mandatory, but if the columns again are there. So let's see, now I don't use these values. Instead I'm gonna call it directly from the flatten. Okay, you know what I mean, right? So let's see, I'm just gonna remove this one, and inside that I'm just gonna use flat. Okay. Okay, before that, let's give flat dot star. Okay, so that you understand how this data is being sent out. Okay, unexpected. Um, okay, which line it was unexpected? Line 92. Lateral flat Then we have an input that is JSON data, and path is set to properties, and then I'm renaming it to flat. Oh, okay. I think I missed the comma there. Ah, yeah. Now it's working fine. Okay. So if you see here, right, so this is what I was talking about. So for this particular record inside the property, so I have 8 indexes. Okay, and 8 indexes has 8 different records. So that's what I was meant to see. So the one record will get expanded into the number of records we have it inside that particular array. Okay, so since you see in here, so inside the property array, so we have around some 8 to 9 parameters, and for every records, for every value we will have an individual record. So right, so now we are given flat dot star, but we need to extract this particular column one by one. But let's see how that works. Okay, let's see flat dot ent name. Okay. Name, and then we'll see flat dot entity name. And then we'll see flat dot let's see, country of residence. Okay, so now we have all the data. Okay. Limit is 10. Okay, this data. Okay, let's run for 3 records. What? Flat dot ent ref count identifier. Okay, so let's see what is this. Oh, okay. So okay, inside the flat function we need to use the value. Okay, so yeah, I missed it actually. Okay, I think now it should be fine. Yes. So now if you see we have this record, but these records, I mean these column data is an individual row, right? So I don't want the other fields where this data is none. So I just want the records where we have the data. So we'll just say where entity ref code is not null, or entity name is not null, or it's not null. Okay, so now let's just select this data. Okay, so this is good. So now we have for every records we have only 3 records, and these 3 records is because the array contains the 3 different value. Okay, it's not when we split that array, so in that array one is having this value, other is having this value, other one is having this value. Now we need to load it into a single record, right? So actually I need it in a single piece of record, because even though it is an array, that array contains the records, but these names are a bit different when you check it here, right? Inside this array, property array, so we have ref code, entity name, address, or whatever the details that we have. These all details are different details. It's not a common detail, but if you see here, we have these names are very much common. So if that's the case, then it's fine. We'll be loading it into a single column, but that is not a case with an actual data when you work with an actual data. So that's why I picked up this particular example to see how we can use Snowflake for that, right? So this actually a different value inside an array. So now we need to load all these three records into a single record. So probably I believe it's an SQL objective that we need to see how to do it. But let's just see. Now we have this one. So I'm gonna introduce another rank function here. Okay, row number over. I believe it's like it is common across all the ANSI SQL. Okay, so I'm gonna partition by owner ID, comma, entity code and entity type. For every entity code and entity type, and then order by the owner ID. I'm gonna mark it as RN. Okay, so now let's see how the data looks. Okay, what is this error? Okay, I added a comma here as well. Okay. Now the three records should be having actually a numbers between them 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3, right? So let's say this consider this as a subquery, and out of this subquery that I'm gonna build an up query which from outer query. Okay, let's say select owner ID and then entity code and then entity type. Okay, so now how I'm gonna do get this one is like out of the three records, only one record will have a value, right? So even if it is have multiple record, how would I found? So let's do some logics. Okay, when rn is equal to 1, then entity type code and as type reference. Okay, so the maximum value for that particular column is what is gonna decide when rn is equal to 2 and rn is equal to 3. Okay, okay, let's see. What is the other column? Entity name it is, and what is the name? Entity code reference. Okay, I'm just gonna select these values from this data set, and I'm gonna give a list name as something, and it should follow by a group by class. And this group by class we have 3 columns. Let's add all the 3 columns. Instead of this, let's see. Okay, so let's remove this limit and then try to run this data with an entire data set. Okay, so if you see here, now we have entity type, entity name, and we have the country code. So irrespective, now we have only one record per combination that what we have, and that truncated into a single record. If you just go through the data set, then that is fine. So this is how we would actually process this particular record. So for the SQLs, whatever we have discussed on this video, I'll just put it on a GitHub page, and I'll share the GitHub link on the description so everyone can use it up. And also please do like, share and subscribe to my page. That really motivates me to provide more content related to the same, and see you on the next video. Thank you. Bye.